Those blood ties mean nothing to me when measured.
You can call Eli Damaskinos from Blade 2 a fossil in a lavish robe. Ancient, terrifying, and cold. He sits at the top of the food chain. Looking pretty, well, strike the looking pretty part, while the rest of his kind sink their teeth into nightclub bouncers and rave kids. But Damaskinos is not about neck hunting for fun. That's too petty for him. Instead, he has his sights focused on the long game. He's all about power, bloodlines, and DIY science experiments that would make Frankenstein roll in his grave. In this video, let's take a closer look into who Eli Damaskinos really is. Where he came from, what he wanted, and why he wanted what he wanted, and how his grand plan spiraled into chaos. Because, well, it always does. He might look like he belongs in a museum, but this power-hungry mastermind most definitely thought he could tinker with people's lives and play God, but instead burned his whole kingdom to the ground. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
We'll settle up after.
Vampire royalty and creepier than your ex's DMs. Let's meet Eli Damaskinos. Eli Damaskinos is most certainly not the kind of vampire who hops out of a coffin and says boo. Nah, this dude doesn't do jump scares, but runs the whole damn vampire hierarchy. And he's the forever undead CEO. You know how most vampires are creepy loners or stylish hunters? Damaskinos is in a totally different league. He comes from Greek descent and is a literal bloodline overlord. The kind of ancient you don't even try to age check because, well, the calendar wasn't invented when he was born. So what is he actually like? Think Nosferatu meets billionaire cult leader. His pale skin makes Flower look tan, and is always dressed in all long flowing robes. You won't catch him wearing leather like Deacon Frost. Like, ever. Nah, Damaskinos is bougie with a capital B. He lives in a massive stone fortress hidden away in some top secret part of the city, complete with gothic columns, torches, and probably a few unpaid interns running the blood banks. He's ancient, powerful, and scary smart, and the vampires around him treat him with serious mad respect. You just know he's always plotting something while you blink, and he doesn't even need to lift a finger to fight his battles. He sits on his blood-soaked throne and pulls strings while everyone else is out swinging swords. And even though he looks like a stone statue that wandered out of a museum, there's nothing slow about his moves behind the curtain. Blade may be the daywalker, but Damaskinos is the dark puppet master who probably invented half the vampire rules we know today, and broke the other half just for fun. Because first, it was fun for him, and second, he could. But what really sets him apart from the average bloodsucker isn't his robes or the palace. Well, that does, but it's also the way he's always 10 moves ahead. This shriveled guy created the Reapers, mutated, ultra-deadly vampires. Like he's a mad scientist playing God, and he still thought he could control them. That's peak vampire arrogance if you ask me. Old, rich, and seriously weird. Where did this guy even come from? Let me tell you, when I say Eli Damaskinos is old, I don't mean he's, well, just old. This guy is biblically old. He's probably seen vampires go from sipping from clay pots to drinking out of crystal goblets. I can imagine that happening. The man's been undead for so long, he probably saw the fall of Babylon and said, amateurs. Damaskinos has been lurking in the shadows since people were still figuring out fire. You don't survive that long without turning ice cold and obsessed with staying on top. Damaskinos is the kind of guy who's been backstabbing so long, he might have invented the whole idea of it. And boy does he love the power. He doesn't dirty his robes with street-level vampire drama. You won't catch him biting necks or picking fights in back alleys. That's rookie vampire stuff. Damaskinos is way past that. He gives out orders and it's carried out. Just like that. His age brought him something more dangerous than sharp fangs. Knowledge. The kind of secrets tucked away in forbidden books or buried in catacombs no one's dared open in centuries. You want to know vampire history, forbidden rituals, or the reason sunlight burns their skin? Damaskinos has the answers. And you don't meet Damaskinos by chance. You get summoned. And if you're in his court, chances are you are either really valuable or about to get fed to something that doesn't speak human. Ancient, arrogant, and playing God. What's he even doing in Blade 2? It's been 2 years since Blade tore through Deacon Frost's plan, the man responsible for Blade's mother's death, and the way Blade turned up, it reminded vampires that Blade is still not the one to mess with. However, the bloodsucker world finds itself neck-deep in a new kind of hell. A pandemic known as the Reaper virus spreads through the vampire community like wildfire. But this isn't a regular flu. This thing mutates vamps into Reapers, creatures that feed on both human and vampire. Any vampire they munch on turns into another Reaper. The whole thing spirals out of control fast. You see, Reapers are built different. Traditional vampire weaknesses like garlic, silver, and all that old school stuff don't really work on them. Only pure UV light burns them down. They're stronger, faster, hungrier, and they don't follow the Vampire Nation's rules. They're not part of any council, and they absolutely don't go clubbing at night, but they do tear through vamps like rabid animals. Now, Eli Damaskinos realizes his empire is about to collapse. With his back against the wall, he sends his right-hand man, Assad, and his daughter Nissa to do the unthinkable. Recruit Blade. Yep, the Daywalker himself. The same guy who slices vampires like it's his day job. Because it is. Blade, after hearing the Reaper's plan, although reluctant, agrees to join forces, temporarily. This alliance is shaky from the jump, because the Blood Pack, a hand-picked squad of vampires recruited by Damaskinos, trained specifically to hunt Blade, have got to work with him now, side by side, because a greater threat looms. That makes this situationship a little too awkward. Their first mission together is to check out a vampire nightclub where Reapers are reportedly feeding. It turns into a massacre, and things only get worse from there. Turns out, these Reapers aren't wandering around randomly, they're organized. And their leader, Jared Nomak, is on a mission, and a personal vendetta. Blade and Nissa slowly begin to trust each other as they witness how out of control things have gotten. But of course, this alliance was never going to last. Blade soon finds out Damaskinos is the mastermind behind the Reaper virus, and it wasn't some honest mistake. The old conniving bloodsucker intentionally created the virus in a lab, trying to create a new breed of super vampires. He wanted the strength and resilience of Reapers, minus their uncontrollable hunger, and the test subject was Nomak, his own son. Now Damaskinos decides it's time to stop playing nice. He orders his scientists to dissect Blade alive, hoping to figure out how the Daywalker balances human bloodlust with vampire powers. So yeah, the whole alliance with Blade was smoke and mirrors, because Damaskino doesn't make allies, he makes pawns. And when he's done using you, he'll either drain you, dissect you, or toss you into the Reaper pit with a smile. But Nomak isn't done with his dear old daddy just yet. He storms into his father's heavily guarded lab, cutting everyone in his path. And he wants only one thing: Damaskinos to pay. Nissa, fed up with her father's lies and cruelty, turns on him too. Nomak confronts Damaskinos in the end, but the old man tries to weasel his way out, offering him power, begging for mercy. But Nomak's not buying it. He bites his father, but thanks to the Reaper virus, Damaskinos dies instead of turning. Bleeds out like a rat caught in a trap. Karma really doesn't mess around in the vampire world. What started as a vampire apocalypse ends up exposing a family feud filled with betrayal. No one comes out of this clean, not even Blade, because even though the Reapers are done for now, he knows the vampire world is still rotten at its core, and the deeper he gets, the worse it smells. What does he look like, and why is he so extra? Eli Damaskinos may rule the vampire world like a godfather of the undead, but physically, he's more Crypt Keeper than Kingpin. From the moment he shows up in Blade 2, you can tell he's ancient. Not in the cool, battle-scarred Dracula way, but in the how are your organs still functioning kind of way. However, this guy means business. We don't see slick back hair, no leather trench coat, no frills. My mate's so pale, and his skin is chalk white, almost stone-like. Pale doesn't even cut it. His skin is so drained of life, it looks like parchment someone forgot in a tomb. If I hadn't known better, and you had told me that he was carved out of ancient marble and came to life during a blood moon, I would have probably believed you. The man is practically translucent. He's all wrinkled with bony fingers that probably haven't held anything heavier than a betrayal contract in 500 years. He wears just layers of flowing robes that look like they were hand-stitched in the year 400 BC. It's so old, but it fits with his vampiric royal aura, because Damaskinos isn't here for subtlety. Every step he takes feels deliberate, like gravity works differently for him. He doesn't walk, he floats through eternity, silently judging everyone who hasn't lived through the fall of Constantinople. And then there's his palace, if you can even call it that. It's not a castle, it's not a lair, there's no warmth, no candles, no creepy paintings. It's clean, too clean, like a vampire science museum where fun goes to die. The halls are long, silent, and symmetrical, with lighting that makes everything feel sterile and tense. You look around and instantly know, this guy doesn't care about being human anymore. That ship sailed centuries ago. He's completely evolved past that whole pretending to fit in phase. A cold, calculating god with blood samples in one hand and betrayal in the other. Yes, that's what Damaskinos is. And it shows in every frame. This guy would sell out his own kind, his allies, his enemies, and yes, even his own son, if it meant he was getting something out of it. He turned his flesh and blood into a Reaper, all in the name of evolution, and that makes him really scary. For a guy who's lived forever, patience isn't his strong suit. Damaskinos becomes obsessed with one big idea: vampire evolution. The old school bloodsuckers weren't cutting it anymore. Too fragile, too easy to kill, too basic. So naturally, he plans to create a better breed of vampires. Ditch the garlic allergies, sunlight meltdowns, and all the other vampire weak points. He dreams of a world where vampires rule in broad daylight without SPF 5000. More powerful, more durable, more obedient. The next step in the undead upgrade path. And since he clearly skipped all the horror movies where playing God backfires, he starts experimenting on his own kind. Without consent, of course, because ethics are for humans. However, instead of building better vamps, he accidentally creates a monster, Nomak, the Reaper, a vampire so evolved he feeds on other vampires. just like he wanted. The Reapers don't burn in sunlight. They don't fear garlic. They don't go down easy. They've got double-jointed jaws that pop open like some demonic snake trap. Basically, Damaskinos builds a monster that doesn't just bite, it swallows the entire house. But the cruel thing is that Nomak is his son. Yeah, Damaskinos did what all egomaniacs do. He experimented on his own bloodline first. Well, Nomak's gotta have a lot of daddy issues to talk about in therapy. Obviously, Nomak ends up hating his creator with the fire of 1,000 suns, and leads a Reaper uprising that threatens to wipe out the entire vampire species. So yeah, Vampire Darwin over here thought he could play God and build the future. What he got was a monster who couldn't be controlled, didn't care about the vampire order, and had a personal grudge big enough to wipe out everything Daddy Dearest built. In the end, Damaskinos' hunger for control, progress, and perfection bites him back hard, literally tearing through his empire, his legacy, and his neck. The lesson here is simple, folks. If you're an ancient vampire billionaire with a god complex, maybe, just maybe, don't turn your own kid into a weaponized bio-horror. Just saying. Still, that's Damaskinos for you. He gambles big, and he doesn't care how many bodies hit the floor as long as he gets his perfect vampire evolution. Ethics, morals, family ties, toss all that in the incinerator. What's weird is, for a guy that ancient, you would expect centuries of blood and power to give him some kind of physical edge. But no, he never shows off any super speed, no outrageous arm-snapping strength, not once. But he's still a vampire, which means heightened senses, agility, and strength, even if he doesn't flaunt it. He lets others do his dirty work. He's got Assad to play bodyguard, Nissa to pull diplomatic strings, scientists to push his creepy experiments, and let's not forget the blood pack on his payroll. It's entirely possible that time finally caught up with him. Maybe immortality didn't mean he got to keep his youth, just his brain and his ambition. His body, though, looks like it gave up decades ago. Like with human elders, the bones probably don't hold up. Reflexes slow down, healing takes longer, and every little injury adds to a growing list of permanent damage. And if we're being real, that might be why he started this whole Reaper virus mess in the first place. He wasn't trying to cure the vampire race, he was trying to save himself. He wanted to jumpstart evolution so he could live forever and get his strength back. But instead of a new future, he ended up creating a monster, Nomak, who turned on him in the end. Marvelous verdict. Eli Damaskinos may have been the mad scientist, but you have to give him credit for his determination. Dude didn't care who got burned in the process, not even if it was his own kid. His Reaper experiment backfired big time, but you gotta admit, he aimed big. By the time blades sliced through his plans and his bodyguard, Damaskinos had already done enough damage to shake the vampire world. He was old, cold, and calculating, and while his end did come at the hands of his own blood, deservingly so, the mess he left behind, that kept the story rolling. He may have looked like he was on his last breath, but make no mistake, he nearly rewrote the vampire rulebook. That's Damaskinos for you. Creepy? Yes. Ruthless? Absolutely. But dangerously ahead of his time. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.